Care about what other people think, and you will always be their prisoner. That's Lao Tzu, a Chinese Taoist philosopher, and I can't think of a quote that feels more true for our generation right now. Whether it's businesses condemned for not being ethical enough, individuals shamed for not being political enough, or the constant parade of hot takes online, it feels like everything around us is built to trap us into caring about what other people think of us. We're all walking around with invisible chains, prisoners to everyone else's opinions. That's why I feel like we're living in Chu's worst nightmare. A society set up to become people pleasers and therefore prisoners of others' opinions of us. I want to start by comparing this people-pleasing prisoner image to a recent movie I watched and loved, K-pop Demon Hunters. If you're friends with me, you've probably already heard me rave about this movie multiple times, but what I loved about it is how it secretly convicts our society. There's a specific scene in the film where the demons take over, aka the Saja Boys, but in a way we wouldn't expect, through our phones. And as the various characters stare into their judgmental reels and comments, their own shame and demon arms latch onto them, very directly like the imprisoning shackles Chu alludes to in his quote. While I understand some people may see this movie as quite elementary, I find it frankly mature for a movie directed towards children. It ties us back to a historically philosophical point about people-pleasing, that our dwelling on others' opinions of us makes us prisoner to shame. So, for a little context as to why I am making an episode on people-pleasing, is that I myself am a people-pleaser. 3 years ago, in my freshman honors history class, we took the MBTI personality test, and I ended up being 100% turbulent. At the time, I didn't really realize what this meant, but in reality, it was a huge warning that I was an extreme people pleaser. It meant that I craved my validation completely externally, or from others. But today, I realize that so many of us are forced into this turbulent mindset because of the judgment we are exposed to daily, not just in our everyday lives, but online too. This might be in the form of a friend subtly belittling you in conversation, or you missing a gathering and suffering intense FOMO. But I am so sick of people pleasers, like me as well, becoming prisoner to these negative judgments, thinking about them for hours. So listen closely. Today, I'm going to share why social media has constructed a people-pleasing society and why it psychologically affects us, but also 5 revelations I had that made me stop caring a little less about what everyone thinks of me, and to allow you to begin living in freedom rather than as a prisoner of everyone's thoughts. So, why now? Just as we discussed in our last episode, social media fuels emotion-provoking content, and therefore judgmental content is naturally at the forefront. In some ways, intense opinions can unite people together through activism, shared values, or cultural communities online. But what about the flip side? What about the small business unfairly ruined by one viral review, or the student wrongly accused in a 10-second clip? These are real people whose lives get torn apart, not because they did something unforgivable, but because judgment travels faster than truth. A specific way I have seen this judgment have an incredibly negative impact is on businesses. This year, Piper, the business owner of Build Solutions, received an extortion message demanding money on her page. When she did not reply or pay, her Google rating, which had been a perfect 5.0, was flooded with a dozen or more fake 1-star reviews in a single day, causing it to plummet to an average of the 3s. According to the New York Times, Piper explained the consequences that it took me 8 years to get my reputation in the market, and one guy can damage it in 1 day. So these judgments made her business suffer significant reputational damage, even though Google later removed some of these fraudulent reviews. And on top of that, it's not just specific content that makes social media such a judgmental place. Let's say you just watch puppies and AI apples all day. That doesn't mean you aren't a prisoner to social media's system. It is the construct of social media in itself of having to gain likes and shares and positive comments in order to gain attention and acknowledgement that reinforces that same structure of needing external validation or turbulency in our daily lives. This is termed implicit bias in psychology, where attitudes or stereotypes unconsciously affect our understanding, actions, and decisions. And in this case, a media system, through repeated exposure, can also create implicit biases. And therefore, this people-pleasing and imprisoning epidemic entraps us all. But how do we get out of this cycle in this generation of online people-pleasers? Well, here are the 5 revelations. First, gratitude over goalposts. Validation may feel like winning, but only for a second. I remember when I first got followers on the podcast Instagram and the TikTok, it felt like such a huge accomplishment, even if it just meant 1 or 2 comments online. But as soon as I began comparing myself to others or setting unattainable goals, I felt small. In these moments, I really learned that joy is not from getting to my next goalpost or next goal, because those always move, but in the consistent and constant gratitude that I practice, because that brings the most consistent joy. Secondly, your time, not theirs. In Ecclesiastes 7:2, it stated, "Death is the destiny of everyone. The living should take this to heart." While this piece of scripture is morbid, it does remind me about the preciousness of time in our lives. The harsh truth is that every half-hearted yes we give away is a piece of our lives we'll never get back. People-pleasing makes you prisoner by robbing your time. Think about the hours you've wasted replaying a conversation where someone judged you, or saying yes to hangouts you didn't want to go to, only to sit there scrolling your phone, wishing you were home. That's time you could have spent doing valuable things, or just resting and being at peace. But instead, it gets sacrificed to other people's opinions, to other people's peace. And the worst part is that they don't dwell on it like you do. Number 3, learn to say the negative things, aka say no. I think no is one of the most freeing words in the English language, but also the hardest for people pleasers to say. I remember one time in freshman year, I said yes to editing someone's math homework when I was already buried in rehearsals, taekwondo, and work. And I stayed up so late helping them just for the idea of them wanting to hang out with me, which is kind of insane. After that, I realized what they were doing and I cut them off. The next day, they turned it in, barely said thanks, and moved on, but you have lost precious hours of sleep, focus, and health, and that is the cost of not saying no. That's the kind of courage I feel like I need in daily life, saying no to doing a group project solo when others slack off, saying no to a trend you don't even like just to get a couple likes, saying no to fake friendships that make you doubt yourself. And it does feel terrifying for the first time, but you'll realize that saying no isn't losing. It is saving yourself from bigger pain later. Number 4, stop consuming judgmental content. Think about how the algorithm works. The more emotional the content, the further it spreads. That's why videos dragging people's outfits, mocking celebrities, or picking apart micro trends dominate our feed. I know that I've seen countless videos of commentary against the show The Summer I Turned Pretty, and there's more hate than any type of good. And honestly, it's addictive to watch at times, but it rewires your brain to crave comparison and negativity rather than acceptance and gratitude. Do you ever notice how a comment section can damage your entire mood, or you click on a video just to enjoy it, but 5 minutes of scrolling the comments and suddenly you just feel kind of insecure and defensive? That's not an accident. That's the system working as it's designed to be. A study from UCLA found that teen brains light up in the reward center when they get likes on social media. It's literally the same response as gambling. Every swipe, every like is like pulling a lever on the slot machine. So the only way is to outstarve the cycle. Take a break. And funny thing is, I found that one of the adult small group leaders in my church actually does not check her phone throughout almost the entire day. She turns it off and she responds to messages just before sleep so she can focus on parenting, reading the word, and being a doctor. I'm personally really inspired by her and therefore feel that we should do the same in filling our head with creation, learning, or quiet instead. Because if you live on a diet of judgment, you will always crave it. Number 5, FOMO is a prison of your own making. FOMO, or the fear of missing out, might be the biggest people-pleasing trap and lie of all time. It makes you say yes when you are exhausted. The crazy thing is that I used to have this super twisted view of FOMO where I saw every social event as an opportunity to prove myself. It felt like if I missed something, then my inherent social value would decrease, which looking back is genuinely so twisted, and hopefully you don't feel the same. The truth is that you will always miss something, always. There will always be a party you don't attend or a friend's trip you miss. But I think there is such a beauty in sharing experiences with your friends without literally being there to share with them. What I mean by that is how many conversations you can open up with your friends on experiences they've exclusively had without you. You don't always have to be present for the context of a joke in order to be included or understand it. You can just ask, be curious, and just have gratitude for that person and what they are sharing with you now. There's no need to be insecure that you weren't there because we are all unique, and it's even more fun now that they get to share it with you through conversation. I also recently watched this show called The Popstar Academy, Cat's Eye, and there's this character named Lexi, and she goes through this brutal idol training process, but towards the end when she is, honestly, I think she would have gotten into the group, she leaves. The endless criticism, competition, and pressure to conform just didn't work with her values, and so she decided to say goodbye to the group and say goodbye to fame. To some, it looked a lot like failure. How could Lexi give up on a chance at stardom, a chance at Cat's Eye? But in reality, there was so much strength in her saying no to a system that could have crushed her, and yes to her own peace and self-worth. So from Lexi's story, I hope you realize that saying no isn't missing out, it's choosing in, and I hope that shifts. You're choosing in to rest, to self-respect, and what actually matters to you. FOMO becomes freedom when you start valuing your own choices over everyone else's, and valuing the conversations and moments you can have with your friends without sharing every single experiences with them. So finally, next time your brain says they're gonna judge me, answer back, cool, let them. I want to emphasize that I shared this conversation because I struggled and still continue to struggle with pleasing people. It's hard to admit because people manipulate you when you admit this and see you as an easy target if you do. But the way you defeat your desires for external validation is very simple. Face it head on. Be brave enough to stop craving the approval of others, be unapologetically yourself, and cut out the voices that make you feel less than. So, as your first piece of homework as an ex-people pleaser, share this video with someone, share it with a friend who overthinks everything, or maybe even someone that makes you feel less than. And tell me in the comments, what is one thing you want to do this week just for you? And to make Chu, our spotlighted Taoist philosopher, proud.